The great meeting hall stretched out like a vast ocean of lights and sounds. Thousands of alien beings filled the space, each one representing worlds that humans had only dreamed about 50 years ago. The air buzzed with translation devices working overtime, turning alien languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Zix Thala stood at the center podium, her crystal-like body catching the light from 100 different suns. She was tall, nearly 10 feet, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of authority that came from leading one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. "Today we discuss the human problem," she announced, and the massive hall fell quiet. Even the floating jellyfish-like Medusans stopped their gentle drifting. The insect-like Qatari clicked their mandibles in agreement. The rock people of the core world shifted their massive bodies with sounds like landslides. Humans had joined the galactic community 50 years ago. Back then they were just another new species learning the rules. But something had changed. They were no longer content to follow. They asked questions. They made suggestions. They solved problems that other species had given up on. "They grow too quickly," said Elder Corinth, his mountain-sized form dominating one entire section of the hall. His voice came through the neural network that connected all the silicon-based life forms. "In 50 years, they have established colonies in sectors that took us centuries to reach." A representative from the Valari Collective, looking like a living shadow with glowing eyes, spoke next. "Their ships are faster than ours. Their technology adapts to new situations. This should not be possible for such a young species." The synthetic territory sent their message through electronic pulses that the translation system converted to speech. "They negotiate as equals. They do not show proper respect for elder species. This disrupts the natural order." More voices joined in. The hive minds of the outer spiral complained that humans thought as individuals, but acted as a group, which confused their collective consciousness. The energy beings from the galactic center said humans burned too bright, used too much power, moved too fast. But the real concern was deeper than technology or speed. Humans had a way of making other species want to work with them. In 50 years, they had built more genuine friendships across species lines than some civilizations managed in 1,000 years. "They change things," whispered the representative from the Quiet Ones, a species that rarely spoke in council sessions. "Wherever humans go, old agreements fall apart. New partnerships form. The balance we have maintained shifts." Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship New Frontier floated in space just outside the meeting hall. His ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels that surrounded the council station, but it carried sensors that no alien scientist had ever seen. The technology was experimental, something the human military had been working on for years. The quantum-shielded walls of the council chamber were supposed to block all forms of listening devices. But human engineers had learned to think differently about physics. They had found ways to detect gravitational fluctuations caused by sound waves, to read the electromagnetic patterns created by translation devices. Morrison listened to every word, his face growing darker with each speaker. "The solution is clear," Ambassador Zix Thala continued. "We must establish oversight protocols. Human expansion will be limited to approved sectors. Their military development will be monitored. Their diplomatic activities will require council approval." The proposal was detailed and thorough. Humans would keep their existing colonies but could not establish new ones without permission. Their ships would carry council observers. Their trade agreements would need approval from a committee of elder species. Their research projects would be supervised. "This is not punishment," explained a representative from the Bureaucratic Union, a species that lived to create regulations. "This is guidance. Humans are young. They need structure. They need rules to help them grow properly." One by one, the species voted. The massive display screen showed the results as they came in. The voting was electronic, anonymous, and final. Green lights for yes, red lights for no, yellow for abstaining. Green light after green light filled the screens. The hegemony voted yes. The core worlds voted yes. The collective voted yes. Even species that had worked closely with humans that had benefited from human help voted to restrict them. Morrison watched his instruments as species after species cast their votes. His jaw clenched as he saw the pattern. The galaxy's oldest civilizations were unanimous. They wanted to put humanity in a cage. The final count appeared on the screens in numbers that could be read by any species. 847 votes in favor of the restrictions. 23 species chose not to vote. 0 votes against. Not a single species had spoken for humanity. Not one had argued that humans deserved to remain free. Even the ones that owed their lives to human intervention had voted to limit human freedom. The motion passes, announced Ambassador Zixthala. Humanity will be placed under council oversight effective immediately. A formal ceremony will be held when human representatives arrive to accept these new arrangements. The chamber erupted in what passed for celebration among the various species. The crystal beings rang like bells. The gas creatures swirled in pleased patterns. The insect species clicked their approval. Morrison activated his ship's communication system. The message would travel faster than any alien technology could track, using quantum entanglement networks that humanity had developed in secret. The signal would reach Earth in minutes, carrying news that would change everything. As he prepared the transmission, Morrison thought about all the times humans had helped these species. When the Valari faced extinction from a quantum plague, human doctors had worked around the clock to find a cure. When the synthetic territories were tearing themselves apart in civil war, human negotiators had brought peace. When pirate fleets threatened the trade routes, human ships had fought and died to keep them safe. None of that mattered now. The galaxy had voted, and the message was clear. Humans were too dangerous to be free. Morrison's fingers moved quickly over the controls as he composed the message that would carry this news back to Earth. The transmission was coded, encrypted, and compressed into a burst that would look like random static to alien sensors. Priority Alpha message to Earth Command. He began recording. The Council has voted. All of them. They want to put us on a leash. As the message raced toward Earth, the alien ships around the Council station began to disperse. The representatives were returning to their home worlds, satisfied that they had solved the human problem before it could grow larger. They had no way of knowing that the problem was already much larger than they had ever imagined, and in a few hours they were going to find out just how much they had underestimated the species they had just voted to control. Admiral Lisa Chen sat in her office high above the Pacific Ocean, watching the morning sun paint the water gold. The view from Pacific Fleet headquarters had always calmed her, but today nothing could ease the tension in her shoulders. Her computer chimed with an incoming priority message, and her blood went cold when she saw the sender. The message from Captain Morrison was brief, coded, and terrifying. Council voted unanimous restriction protocols. All species voted yes, 0 opposition. They want us caged. Chen immediately activated the emergency communication network. Within minutes, secure quantum links connected her to leaders across the solar system and beyond. President Carlos Rodriguez appeared on her main screen from his office in Washington, his usually calm face showing deep concern. "How bad is it?" Rodriguez asked without preamble. "As bad as we feared," Chen replied, forwarding Morrison's detailed report. "They voted to put us under permanent oversight. No new colonies without permission. Council observers on our ships. Committee approval for all trade deals." General Patricia Wells joined the call from Luna Base, her silver hair catching the artificial light of the moon station. "They're treating us like children," she said after reading the report. "Dangerous children who can't be trusted to make their own decisions." Dr. Amanda Foster connected from the research facility on Mars, her laboratory visible behind her. As Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, she had predicted this moment for years. "The concerning part isn't just that they voted to restrict us," she said, pulling up species profiles on her screen. "It's that every single species went along with it. Even the ones we've saved." Chen leaned back in her chair, thinking about the implications. In 50 years since first contact, humanity had worked hard to prove they belonged in the galactic community. They had followed the rules, respected alien customs, and helped solve problems across the galaxy, but apparently none of that mattered. "They're afraid of us," Rodriguez said quietly. "That much is clear. But what are they afraid of exactly?" Dr. Foster highlighted several species on her display. "We think differently than they do. Most alien civilizations develop slowly, carefully. They spend centuries debating before making changes. We adapt quickly, take risks, try new approaches. To them, we must seem reckless." "Reckless," General Wells repeated with a bitter laugh. "We saved the Valari from extinction. We stopped the synthetic civil war. We've kept the trade routes safe from pirates for decades. And they call us reckless." Chen looked at the data streaming across her screens. Reports from human colonies, trading posts, and exploration missions scattered across multiple star systems. The aliens thought they understood humanity's presence in the galaxy, but they had only seen a small part of it. There's something they don't know, Chen said slowly, something they never bothered to check. She activated a new display, one that showed the true extent of human expansion. Not just the official colonies that the Council knew about, but the mining operations in remote asteroid fields, the trading posts in neutral zones, the research stations in uncharted systems, the patrol routes that human ships traveled to keep space safe. My God, Rodriguez breathed, staring at the display. How many of our people are out there? More than the aliens counted, Chen replied. Much more. They think we're a small new species with a few dozen worlds. They don't realize we've been everywhere, doing everything, helping everyone. General Wells studied the tactical implications. Our shipping network alone keeps half the galaxy supplied. Our patrol ships have been preventing conflicts they never even hear about. Our traders have been building relationships with species the Council barely talks to. Dr. Foster nodded grimly. We've made ourselves indispensable and they don't even know it. They want to restrict us, but they can't function without us. The discussion continued for hours as more leaders joined the call. Colony governors from the Outer Rim, fleet commanders from deep space patrols, trade representatives who had spent years building relationships with alien partners. Each one brought more evidence of humanity's deep integration into galactic civilization. The question is, what do we do about it? Rodriguez finally asked. Chen had been thinking about that since Morrison's message arrived. The traditional diplomatic approach would be to accept the restrictions, then work within the system to prove humanity deserved more freedom. But the unanimous vote suggested that approach would take decades if it worked at all. We need to have a conversation with the Council, she said finally. A real conversation, face to face. They expect us to send a small delegation to formally accept their restrictions, General Wells pointed out. A few diplomats in a single ship, arriving quietly to sign whatever papers they put in front of us. Chen smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then let's not give them what they expect. She began issuing orders through the quantum network. Messages raced to every human colony, every trading post, every exploration ship in the galaxy. The orders were simple: come home. Not to Earth, but to a different kind of home. A gathering unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. You're calling everyone? Dr. Foster asked, understanding dawning on her face. Everyone, Chen confirmed. Every ship, every colony, every human who can possibly make the journey. The Council voted on humanity's future without understanding who we really are. It's time to show them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, reports began flowing back through the communication network. Colony ships were preparing for departure. Trading fleets were abandoning their routes. Exploration vessels were turning around from the edges of known space. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the quantum static from his position near the Council station. Admiral, the alien traffic control is starting to ask questions. They're seeing course changes throughout this sector. Let them wonder, Chen replied. In 3 days, they'll have their answers. President Rodriguez watched the movement patterns on the strategic display. This is a massive commitment, Lisa. We're pulling people from essential positions across the galaxy. The positions won't matter if we're not free to fill them, Chen pointed out. The Council thinks they can vote on our future because they see us as a small, weak species. Time to correct that misunderstanding. As the hours passed, the scope of the response became clear. It wasn't just military vessels answering the call. Civilian transports, research ships, mining platforms, and even luxury liners were joining the growing fleet. Families were leaving their homes on distant worlds to be part of this moment. General Wells coordinated the logistics from Luna Base, her staff working around the clock to manage the movement of hundreds of ships. I've never seen anything like this, she admitted. It's like we're moving our entire civilization. In a way we are, Dr. Foster observed. We're showing the galaxy who humanity really is. Not just the official representatives they're used to dealing with, but all of us. The miners, the traders, the explorers, the families, everyone. Chen stood at her window, watching ships launch from Earth's orbital stations. Each one carried humans who had answered the call, people willing to travel across the galaxy to stand up for their species' freedom. The sight filled her with pride and determination. The Council wanted to vote on our future, she said to the assembled leaders on the communication network. Now humanity gets to vote too. The early warning sensors around Nexus Prime had never recorded readings like these. Chief Monitor Veltar, a six-armed creature from the Surveillance Guild, watched his displays with growing alarm as contact after contact appeared on the screens. "How many ships are we tracking now?" asked his assistant, a younger member of his species whose arms trembled with nervousness. 237 confirmed contacts, Veltar replied, his voice tight with concern. And more arriving every hour. The expected human response to the Council's vote was supposed to be simple. A small delegation would arrive within the week, probably no more than a dozen officials in a single diplomatic vessel. They would formally accept the new restrictions, sign the necessary documents, and return home to begin compliance. Instead, the space around Nexus Prime was filling with human ships unlike anything in the alien databases. Military vessels flew in formation with civilian transports. Colony ships traveled alongside research platforms. Even luxury cruise liners had made the journey, their passenger holds full of families who had come to witness this moment. Fleet Admiral Tony Parker stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. The human fleet had been assembling for 2 days, ships arriving through hyperspace routes that the aliens didn't know existed. "Final count, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Susan Davis from her position at the communication station. 263 vessels confirmed in formation. All ships report ready status. Parker nodded, studying the arrangement of ships around him. This wasn't just a fleet. It was a representation of everything humanity had built in 50 years of galactic exploration. Colony ships from the Rim territories flew next to, trading vessels from the Independent, Merchants Guild, military escorts protected, research ships carrying scientists from universities the aliens had never heard of. "Any response from Council Traffic Control?" Parker asked. "They keep requesting our intentions and departure schedules," Davis replied with a slight smile. "I've been telling them we're here for the diplomatic ceremony," which is technically true. On Nexus Prime's surface, emergency meetings were being called throughout the government districts. The Council had expected to handle a minor administrative matter. Instead, they found themselves facing what appeared to be the entire human civilization. Ambassador Zixathala stood in her private office, staring at the tactical displays that showed the human fleet in orbit. Her crystalline form flickered with patterns that indicated deep concern among her species. "This is unprecedented," she said to her military advisor, a warrior from the assault caste whose species had conquered half their home galaxy before joining the Council. "No species has ever brought such a force to Nexus Prime. Should we activate defensive protocols?" the warrior asked, his battle-scarred carapace gleaming under the office lights. "No," Zixathala decided after a long pause. "They have made no hostile moves. They simply arrived, but why so many? What are they planning?" Similar conversations were taking place in government buildings. Across Nexus Prime, the Council members, who had voted so confidently just days earlier, now found themselves questioning their assumptions about humanity. Elder Corinth's massive consciousness reached out through the neural network to other silicon-based life forms throughout the galaxy. "The humans are not behaving as expected," he transmitted. "Young species do not respond to Council decisions with such coordination." In the depths of space, Captain Morrison floated aboard his ship, monitoring alien communication channels. The confusion in their transmissions was obvious even through the translation barriers. They had expected compliance and received defiance instead. "Admiral Parker," Morrison called through the quantum link, "the alien fleet commanders are requesting a meeting. They want to know our intentions before we enter their system's inner zones." "Tell them our intentions are diplomatic," Parker replied calmly. "We're here for the ceremony they planned. We're just bringing a few more guests than expected." The human fleet wasn't just large. It was organized in ways that impressed even experienced military observers among the alien species. Ships moved in perfect formations, despite coming from dozens of different colonies and organizations. Communication between vessels flowed seamlessly across multiple command structures. Dr. Amanda Foster watched the proceedings from the research vessel, Discovery, her team monitoring alien reaction patterns across multiple channels. "They're genuinely shocked," she reported to Admiral Chen through the communication network. "Our intelligence estimates were way off. They had no idea how many ships we could field. The question is, how many people are we talking about? Chen's voice crackled through the quantum link from her position aboard the command ship. Foster checked her passenger manifests and crew reports. Preliminary count shows over 300,000 humans in the fleet. Military personnel, civilian volunteers, colony representatives, trading crews, research teams, even tourists who wanted to be part of history. The number sent ripples of amazement through the fleet command structure. In 50 years, humanity had spread farther and grown faster than anyone had calculated. The aliens thought they were dealing with a small species. Instead, they faced a civilization that had quietly become one of the largest in the galaxy. President Rodriguez participated in the fleet communications from aboard the diplomatic vessel, New Hope, his presence lending official authority to what might otherwise be seen as a military threat. The important thing is that we're not here to fight, he reminded the fleet commanders. We're here to talk. But we're talking as equals, not as subjects accepting restrictions. General Wells coordinated the fleet's defensive posture from her command ship, making sure the human vessels presented a strong but non-threatening formation. The aliens are running continuous scans on our ships, she reported. They're trying to figure out our capabilities. Let them scan, Parker decided. They're going to learn the truth about us sooner or later. Might as well be sooner. The truth was becoming apparent in the data flowing through alien intelligence networks. Human ships carried technology that didn't appear in any Council database. Their defensive systems were more advanced than expected. Their communication networks operated on principles that alien scientists were still trying to understand. But the most surprising discovery was the diversity of the human fleet. This wasn't just Earth's navy. Ships flew the flags of Mars, Luna, the asteroid belt, and colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Independent trading companies had their own vessels. Research institutions operated their own fleets. Even individual families owned ships capable of interstellar travel. They're not just one-world species, whispered a representative from the Intelligence Collective, a species that prided itself on knowing everything about galactic civilizations. They're everywhere. How did we miss this? The answer was simple but embarrassing for the galaxy's intelligence services. They had tracked official human government activities, but ignored the private citizens, independent organizations, and colonial groups that made up the majority of human space presence. They had counted government ships but missed the civilian vessels. They had monitored official communications but overlooked the private networks. As the human fleet completed its formation in orbit around Nexus Prime, the true scope of humanity's presence in the galaxy became undeniable. This wasn't a small species asking for mercy. This was a major civilization demanding respect. Admiral Parker opened a communication channel to the Council station, broadcasting on all frequencies so every alien ship in the system could hear. Nexus Prime Control. This is Fleet Admiral Parker representing the human delegation. We're ready for the diplomatic ceremony you scheduled. We hope you have a large enough venue. We brought everyone. The great doors of the Council chamber were built to accommodate the largest species in the galaxy. They stood 40 feet tall and 60 feet wide, designed for beings like Elder Corinth whose silicon-based forms could fill entire city blocks. In 12,000 years of Council history, the doors had never been opened to their full width. Today, for the first time, they opened completely. Admiral Lisa Chen walked through first, her dress uniform crisp and her bearing radiating quiet confidence. Behind her came a stream of humans that seemed endless to the alien observers. President Carlos Rodriguez walked beside General Patricia Wells, their presence lending both civilian and military authority to the procession. Captain Morrison followed, still wearing his ship commander's jacket from the long journey to Nexus Prime. Dr. Amanda Foster walked with the research team, her tablet displaying data that would soon shock the Council. Behind them came colony governors from worlds the aliens had never heard of, trading captains who had built relationships across the galaxy, and ordinary citizens who had traveled across space to be part of this moment. They filled the chamber floor completely. The space that usually held a few dozen delegates now contained thousands of humans. Every seat, every standing area, every available space was occupied by people representing humanity's true presence in the galaxy. The alien representatives fell silent. The crystal beings stopped their musical communications. The gas creatures ceased their swirling patterns. Even the insect-like species stopped their constant clicking. For the first time in Council history, the Great Chamber was completely quiet. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space without any amplification. We received your vote regarding humanity's future. We're here to discuss it. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Ambassador Zixthala was the first to recover from her shock. This is highly irregular, she said, her crystalline form flickering with confusion patterns. The chamber has designated seating for official delegates only. We're not delegates, President Rodriguez replied, stepping forward so his voice would carry to every corner of the massive hall. We're humanity, all of humanity, and we're here because you voted on our future without understanding who we are. Elder Corinth tried to assert protocol from his position among the silicon-based representatives. The council follows proper procedures. Your official government was notified of our decision. The appropriate diplomatic channels were used. The appropriate channels, General Wells repeated with a slight smile that the aliens had learned to find unsettling. Yes, you sent word to our government on Earth, but you never asked about the rest of us. Dr. Foster activated a holographic display that materialized in the center of the chamber. Visible to every representative in the hall, the image showed the galaxy as the council understood it, with small markers indicating known human colonies and outposts. This is what you think humanity looks like, she announced. A small species from one world, with a few dozen colonies in nearby systems. A minor member of the galactic community that can be easily managed. The display changed, showing new data that made the alien representatives shift uncomfortably in their various forms of seating. The small markers expanded into networks of settlements, trading posts, mining operations, and research stations. Lines connected human outposts to alien worlds, showing trade relationships and cooperation agreements that the Council had never documented. This is what humanity actually looks like, Dr. Foster continued. We've been here all along. You just never bothered to look. Captain Morrison took over the presentation, his experience as a diplomat serving him well. When the Volari Collective faced extinction from the quantum plague, who developed the cure? Not your Council medical teams. Our research stations worked around the clock for months to save them. New data appeared in the holographic display, showing human medical ships racing to Volari worlds while Council vessels were still forming committees to discuss the crisis. When the synthetic territories were tearing themselves apart in civil war, who mediated the peace talks? Not your diplomatic corps. Our negotiators spent years building trust between the warring factions. More images flowed through the display, showing human diplomats working in neutral zones while Council representatives debated jurisdiction. When the hive minds of Andromeda's edge were cut off by spatial storms, who kept their supply lines open? Not your trading guilds. Our merchant fleet risked their lives, flying through dangerous space to deliver food and medical supplies. The display showed human cargo ships navigating through cosmic phenomena that had defeated alien vessels, their crews working without recognition or reward from the galactic community. With each example, the scope of humanity's involvement in galactic affairs became clearer. They hadn't just been exploring and trading. They had been solving problems, preventing conflicts, and holding the galactic civilization together in ways that the Council had never recognized. The Orion sector pirate fleets that disappeared last year, General Wells added. You assumed they moved to other hunting grounds. They didn't. We dealt with them. Our patrol ships eliminated the threat while your security forces were still filing reports. The resource shortage in the Outer Rim territories, President Rodriguez continued. You thought market forces corrected it naturally. They didn't. Our traders reorganized the supply chains and negotiated new agreements to ensure fair distribution. The territorial dispute between the Crystalline Empire and the gas giant Confederacy, Admiral Chen concluded. You believed your mediation prevented war. It didn't. Our diplomatic teams had already resolved the conflict through back-channel negotiations. The holographic display now showed a galaxy where human influence touched every major crisis, every significant trade route, every diplomatic breakthrough of the past 50 years. The pattern was undeniable and overwhelming. Ambassador Zixthala's crystalline form was flickering rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among her species. If this data is accurate, then humanity has been managing galactic stability without Council oversight or approval. Not managing, Rodriguez corrected firmly. Participating. The way we thought all Council species participated, But apparently most of you prefer to let others solve the hard problems while you debate in committees. A representative from the bureaucratic union, a species that lived to create regulations, spoke up nervously. These activities should have been reported through proper channels. There are protocols for interspecies assistance. Dr. Foster laughed, a sound that somehow carried both amusement and frustration. We tried to follow your protocols for the first 10 years. Do you know how long it takes to get approval for emergency medical aid through council channels? 6 months. Do you know how long it takes for a plague to destroy a civilization? 6 weeks. So we learned to act first and file paperwork later, Captain Morrison added, because by the time you finished debating whether to help, the crisis was usually over. Elder Corinth's massive consciousness processed this information slowly. You are saying that humanity has been circumventing council authority for decades? No, Admiral Chen replied with infinite patience. We're saying we've been doing the jobs that needed doing while you decided whether they were worth your attention. We thought that was what being part of the galactic community meant. Everyone contributing, everyone solving problems, everyone taking responsibility. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from different species began communicating simultaneously. Translation systems struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations as the implications of humanity's revelations sank in. A representative from the intelligence collective spoke above the noise. Our analysis shows that human involvement in these activities was never properly documented. How did our surveillance networks miss such extensive operations? Because you were looking for the wrong things, General Wells replied. You monitored our government communications and tracked our official ships, but most of our work was done by private citizens, independent organizations, and colonial groups that aren't part of any government structure. You mean your citizens act without government control? Asked a shocked representative from the centralized authority species. We mean our citizens act because it's the right thing to do, President Rodriguez answered. They don't wait for orders or permissions. They see problems and they solve them. The display shifted to show population data that stunned the alien observers. Human colonies existed in systems the Council had never heard of. Trading networks connected species that had no official diplomatic relations. Research stations operated in uncharted regions of space. How many humans are there? Whispered Ambassador Zixathala. Dr. Foster smiled as she provided the answer that would change everything. More than you counted. Much more than you counted. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. Thousands of alien minds processed the implications of what they had just learned. The humans had not just been exploring and trading. They had made themselves the invisible foundation that held galactic civilization together. Ambassador Zixathala was the first to speak, her crystalline form flickering with uncertainty patterns that her species had not displayed in centuries. You are saying that humanity has been managing galactic stability without our knowledge? Not managing, President Rodriguez corrected gently. Supporting. The way partners support each other. We thought that was normal. Normal, repeated Elder Corinth, his massive silicon consciousness struggling with the concept. Your species considers interstellar crisis response to be normal behavior? General Wells stepped forward, her military bearing commanding attention even from beings who had never encountered humans before. The Orion sector pirates that disappeared last year? Our patrol ships eliminated them. The supply shortage in the Outer Rim? Our traders reorganized the distribution networks. The territorial dispute between the Crystalline Empire and the Gas Giant Confederacy? Our mediators prevented it from becoming a war. Dr. Foster activated new displays that showed real-time data from across Council space. This isn't historical information, she announced. This is happening right now, today, while we speak. The displays showed human cargo ships delivering emergency supplies to a mining colony that had suffered equipment failures. Human medical teams were responding to an outbreak of stellar fever in the neutral zone. Human patrol vessels were escorting a diplomatic convoy through a region known for raider activity. Every day, Dr. Foster continued, thousands of humans are working to keep galactic civilization running smoothly. Most of you never see them because they do their jobs quietly and efficiently. Captain Morrison moved to the center of the chamber, his diplomatic experience evident in how he commanded the attention of so many different species. You voted to control humanity because you were afraid of us. But you should be afraid of a galaxy without us. The tactical displays around the chamber began showing overlapping networks of human activity. Trade routes, security patrols, diplomatic missions, research projects, emergency response teams. The pattern covered every region of Council space and extended far beyond into areas the Council had never explored. "This is impossible," protested a representative from the Analysis Guild, a species that prided itself on understanding complex systems. No single species could maintain such extensive operations without centralized control. "That's where you're wrong." Admiral Chen replied with a smile that the aliens found both reassuring and terrifying. "We don't have centralized control. We have something better. We have citizens who care about their neighbors, no matter which planet they come from." President Rodriguez looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. "Your civilizations wait for official approval before helping others. Ours doesn't. When we see a problem, we fix it. When we see someone in danger, we help them. When we see injustice, we oppose it." "But this creates chaos," argued a representative from the Order Maintenance Coalition. "Without proper authority and oversight, how do you prevent conflicts between different response groups?" "The same way you prevent conflicts in any community," General Wells answered. "Communication, cooperation, and common goals. Our people talk to each other. They work together. They share the same basic values about helping others." The displays shifted to show communication networks that the aliens had never detected. Human colonies, ships, and outposts were connected by quantum communication systems that operated on principles Council scientists were still trying to understand. Information flowed instantly across thousands of light years, allowing coordinated responses to crises anywhere in the galaxy. "Your intelligence networks missed all of this?" Elder Corinth asked his military advisors through the neural link. "We monitored official government communications," came the reply. "These appear to be private citizen networks operating outside any governmental structure." Dr. Foster highlighted specific examples on the main display. "When the Valari plague struck, our response came from 17 different medical research facilities, none of them government-owned. The cure was developed by university teams, private laboratories, and colonial health services working together. The Synthetic Territories peace negotiations involved mediators from our diplomatic corps, trade representatives who knew both sides, and even retired military officers who volunteered their time," Captain Morrison added. "No one ordered them to help. They chose to." More examples flowed across the displays. Human farmers had solved food shortages on alien worlds. Human engineers had repaired critical infrastructure after natural disasters. Human teachers had shared educational methods that improved learning outcomes across species lines. Human artists had created cultural exchanges that built friendships between former enemies. "In 50 years, Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, humanity has prevented 12 interspecies wars, solved 37 resource crises, and established trade relationships that have increased galactic prosperity by 43%. And you want to put restrictions on us?" The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. The Council had voted to limit a species that had quietly become essential to galactic stability. "If this data is accurate," Ambassador Zixthala said slowly, "then restricting human activities could destabilize the entire galaxy." "Now you're starting to understand," President Rodriguez replied. "You can vote to control us if you want. But first you might want to look at your current situation reports. Check how many of your stable regions depend on humans you didn't know were there." The alien representatives began accessing their own databases, pulling up security reports, economic analyses, and diplomatic status updates. The pattern became clear quickly. Human involvement appeared in every successful crisis resolution, every peaceful trade negotiation, every prevented conflict. A representative from the Economic Analysis Division spoke with barely controlled panic. "Our trade stability indices show human merchant activity as a critical factor in preventing resource wars throughout the outer territories. Our security reports indicate that human patrol activities have eliminated 63% of piracy incidents over the past decade," added a military advisor from the Defense Coordination Authority. "Our diplomatic success rates increase by 37% when human mediators are involved in negotiations," reported a confused diplomat from the Peaceful Resolution Institute. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Humanity had not just joined galactic civilization. They had become its most active and effective problem solvers. Elder Corinth's consciousness reached out through the neural network, consulting with silicon-based intelligences throughout the galaxy. The response was unanimous and disturbing. Our stability models show critical dependency on human activities across multiple sectors. Restricting their operations would likely result in system-wide failures. Admiral Chen smiled, but there was no triumph in her expression. So here's our counter-proposal. Instead of voting to control us, why don't you vote to officially recognize what we've been doing all along? Make humanity the Council's primary response team for galactic crises. Give us the resources and authority to do openly what we've been doing quietly for 50 years. The proposal hung in the chamber air like a challenge. The Council had intended to reduce humanity's role in galactic affairs. Instead, they found themselves facing a choice to vastly expand it. You want official status as the galaxy's crisis response specialists? Asked Ambassador Zixthala. We want official recognition of what we already are, Rodriguez corrected. We've been doing this job for decades. We're just asking for the tools and support to do it better. General Wells added her own perspective. Right now, our people work without official backing, using their own resources, taking personal risks to help others. Imagine what we could accomplish with proper support. The chamber erupted into the controlled chaos of interspecies consultation. Representatives communicated with their home governments. Military advisors ran scenarios through tactical computers. Economic analysts calculated the costs of various options. The second vote, when it came 4 hours later, was even more unanimous than the first. But this time, the green lights on the display screens represented something entirely different. Instead of restricting humanity, the Council voted to expand their role. Instead of limiting their activities, they voted to support them. Instead of controlling them, they voted to work with them. The motion passes unanimously, announced Ambassador Zixthala. Humanity is hereby designated as the Galactic Council's primary crisis response civilization, with full authority to act in emergency situations and official backing for their ongoing stability operations. Admiral Chen stood among her people, watching as alien vessels in orbit around Nexus Prime began pairing up with human ships, not as monitors or guards, but as partners preparing to work together. Think they learned their lesson? Captain Morrison asked quietly. Chen watched the display screens showing the voting results. Every